Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Following news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
Tonight, millions are on alert for dangerous weather as storms slam the eastern half of the country. Authorities in Texas drastically revised the number of missing in those devastating floods as lawmakers get to work on measures they hope will save lives. And the WNBA's biggest stars make a very public statement to the league. First, the flash flooding threat for communities across the country. Bystanders and first responders rescuing motorists trapped by rapidly rising waters. What's in store for tonight and a look ahead as extreme heat grips the heartland and south? Our weather team times it all out. A close call between a Delta regional passenger jet and a B-52 bomber. The B-52 with its location off, the Delta pilot maneuvering at the last minute to avoid colliding with the bomber, later apologizing to passengers, what we're learning now. And the growing bipartisan calls for the release of all government files on convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein as the controversy intensifies, and why President Trump is telling lawmakers to stay in town for their August vacation. The search ends for a missing 9-year-old girl in a popular upstate New York tourist area. The details just coming in. Israel expands its evacuation orders in the Gaza Strip amid more violence as dozens more Palestinians are killed while trying to reach food aid centers. A threat for Washington State's salmon population after a fuel tanker crash and massive spill. The WNBA's biggest names make a statement during the All-Star weekend amid contentious contract negotiations, what the league is saying, and the record-breaking game that included the new 4-point shot. And America Strong tonight, the team of volunteers that work tirelessly to save the summer for some very special campers.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining.
An off-duty Border Patrol officer was shot in the face last night by an illegal alien in New York City in what is being called a failed robbery attempt. Surveillance video shows two men riding in on a moped before one of them ambushes the victim, tossing him to the side and firing off a shot. The officer was taken to the hospital and is expected to recover. But the suspected shooter is a 21-year-old Dominican national who entered the country illegally in 2023. He was released under the Biden administration, and he has been on a crime spree ever since.
This 21-year-old male has prior arrests for assault and violated an order of protection. At the time of this shooting, he had an active bench warrant from the Bronx, was wanted for a robbery from last December and a stabbing from January. A robbery from last December and a stabbing in January.
President Trump weighed in on the attack earlier today, blaming Biden's lawless border policy for the shooting. Joining us now is Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons. Director Lyons, thanks for being with us. How do you respond to this rap sheet of this violent illegal alien?
Hey, well, first, thanks for having me. First off, I'm very happy that the officer is going to be okay. We pray for him and his family. And I'm happy that he was able to return fire and take that individual down. You know, that just shows right there that there was a broken border policy. Now that we have an individual that came into the country illegally, was released on his own recognizance, and then just went on a crime spree. And if you look at all the times he's been arrested and released without any notification to ICE, and not only that, but what the mayor also failed to mention was the fact that he also has an active warrant in Massachusetts for armed kidnapping. And so that just shows that his crime spree went all over the Northeast untouched. Northeast untouched.
Yeah, Director Lyons, great to see you. And all those places, of course, have the same kind of sanctuary policies where these criminals commit crimes and they don't turn them over to the federal government, so they keep committing those crimes. But there's been a lot of success over the past 6 months since Trump took office. Border encounters have plunged to 93%. Over 10,000 abandoned migrant children have been located. Migration through Panama's Darien Gap is down 99%, and more than 300,000 illegals have been arrested. 70% of them who had criminal charges or convictions. But this success has come at a pretty steep price. There's been an 830% increase in assaults on ICE agents compared to the same time last year, and this comes as federal authorities arrest a man in Ohio for allegedly making terroristic threats to kidnap, assault, and murder a U.S. official. Meanwhile, Democrats are demanding ICE agents expose their identities by removing their masks.
We have a Los Angeles Police Department that has to deal with crime in this city every single day. And they're not masked. The masked men parachute in, stay here for a while, and leave. And so you enter a profession like policing, like law enforcement.
On this Sunday night, tariff pressures rattle Canadian-U.S. trade. The U.S. is threatening 35% tariffs on Canadian goods.
Canada is not open to us. They need to open their market.
As Canada stands firm, how the Port of Churchill is seen as a potential trade lifeline. A grim find by a group of YouTubers.
I just hope that they find some comfort and some relief.
The bones they discovered in Quebec believed to be from a man missing for more than 30 years. The latest on the driver of a vehicle that plowed into a crowd outside a Los Angeles nightclub. Plus, a high-speed festival. A roaring day of races hit the streets as thousands gather for Indy Toronto.
Global National, reporting tonight, Ito Garcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. With less than 2 weeks to go for Canada to make a trade deal with the U.S., the Prime Minister and Premiers are set to tackle the issue during a 3-day meeting in Ontario. U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened to impose a 35% tariff on imported Canadian goods unless a trade agreement is reached by August 1st. But as Mackenzie Gray reports, Trump's Commerce Secretary is making it clear the U.S. is firmly committed to imposing substantial levies if American demands are not met.
It's tariff talk that we've heard before. Canada is not open to us. They need to open their market. Unless they're willing to open their market, they're going to pay a tariff. That's a simple message the president has.
But what Canada isn't open to wasn't made clear by the Commerce Secretary. His own Trade Department said that in 2024, Canada was the top destination for U.S. exports. One long-standing complaint from the Trump administration, Canadian supply management. Despite the fact that U.S. dairy farmers can send 50 billion liters of milk to Canada annually before any tariffs kick in, a threshold that's never been exceeded. But regardless of the rationale, it seems like tariffs are coming.
The president said, look, unless you stop this fentanyl and close the border, we're just going to keep tariffs.
Trump has made a habit of contradicting what Howard Lutnick has previously said, but this time, the message was quickly amplified from an official White House Twitter account. Lutnick's comments back up what the Prime Minister had said earlier this week, that no country so far has been able to escape U.S. tariffs.
We believe in free trade. We believe that the best arrangements would be low tariffs.
Although what Trump is threatening isn't low. A 35% tariff on non-free trade goods from Canada is promised for August 1st, which will hit a quarter of all Canada-U.S. trade. But that's likely just a warm-up to renegotiating the free trade deal that Trump struck back in 2018.
It makes perfect sense for the president.
Their bids become Britain's city of law and order.
Nigel Farage will today vow to end early release for violent criminal offenders, mass deportations and even jail time overseas for the worst offenders.
Will this be the tough crackdown on crime voters have been waiting for?
Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner is under fire over her plans to introduce an official definition of Islamophobia. Critics say it could shut down debate, costing them over 1 million votes.
The regulator Ofwat is with new powers being introduced to stop customers being ripped off following years of sewage spills, soaring bills, and sky-high pay for bosses.
An underwater search has been launched for missing woman Rachel Booth, who was last seen in the early hours of Saturday morning.
You could be offered free tickets to a local football game.
As Donald Trump prepares to head to Scotland for 5 days later this week, Vice President J.D. Vance elects to spend his summer holidays in the Cotswolds. We're asking this morning, is this a sign that the UK-US relationship is at an all-time high?
And in sport this morning, the best golfer in the world, Scotty Scheffler, is now being talked up as the next Tiger after winning his 4th major, the opener of World Port Rush yesterday. Paul Gascoigne is in hospital after being found collapsed at home on Friday, and albeit on loan, Marcus Rashford looks like getting his dream move.
After a wet weekend for many of us, are there any signs it's turning dry in the week ahead? Find out in your full forecast coming up.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Dr. Stephen Dixon.
Benny Costa.
You're what?
Mrs.
Benny Costa.
There we are. Also, why am I? And this is GB News Breakfast. Authorities in Gaza say more than 80 Palestinians have been killed trying to get desperately needed aid across the war-ravaged region. For it's a sitting week.
More often than not, Labour has been at the other end of the corridor, which is what we should never, ever, ever take it for granted.
The Environment Minister to see the toxic algae devastating coastal life firsthand, and calls to combat workplace ageism with a new report finding employers think 50 is high. After one of the deadliest attacks on people seeking food since the war began, and a warning this report Israelis to access aid in the last 36 hours, with at least 7 of them one side in the north or ravaged territory. It comes as Gaza's health ministry warns of growing numbers of people dying from hunger and fatigue. Hospital workers record at least 8 famine-related deaths past day.
For weeks now, stacks and others.
Good morning, everyone. It's 6 o'clock. Great to be with you this Monday. A landmark future of the Wall Street is being published right now. We'll discuss what it means for household bills and the cleanliness of our seas and rivers.
And England stars rally around defender Jess Carter after she reveals she suffered racist abuse at the Euros.
It's Monday the 21st of July. Well, the government says the water sector is failing everyone, and this morning we'll find out how they're going to change it. We also report from Syria on the efforts to protect a fragile ceasefire after a week of deadly violence. The government orders a national inquiry into one of the most violent clashes of the miners' strike in the 1980s, the Battle of Orgreave. There's reports this morning that Paul Gascoigne is recovering in hospital after being rushed to intensive care. And Scotty Scheffler is the new Open champion after dominating the week at Royal Portrush. Good morning, everyone. So household bills are rising, infrastructure, well, it's aging to be fair, and our seas and rivers are drowning in sewage. And this morning, we'll learn more about how the government intends to fix it. A landmark report from the Independent Water Commission has just been released. Our business and economics correspondent, that's Paul Kelso, has the report in his hands right now. Great to have you with us, Paul. While he digests that, let's talk to our political correspondent, Mari. What do we already know? The overhaul of the water industry, whether it's leaking pipes or sewage spilling into our seas and rivers, it's been a big headache for successive governments. Mari, morning. Yeah.
Alone as Israel also launches a new evacuation order that affects up to 18,000 people. I'll talk to our correspondent Nolitana Polsky in Jerusalem in just a moment. Humanitarian aid convoys start to enter the battlefield. Syria that have killed hundreds. Military.
I think worldwide.
protests taken in the city from rival Bedouin tribal groups after a week of sectarian violence that killed more than 1,100 people. The ceasefire seems to be holding in the city more than 24 hours after it was declared. Multiple parts of the central city of Beit Hotbala suggesting an Israeli ground operation could be imminent after its army issued evacuation orders for the area. Earlier, the Hamas-controlled Gaza Civil Defense Agency said Israeli forces killed nearly 100 people, most of them waiting for an aid convoy. Israel disputes the death toll. Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba's governing coalition has lost its majority in the upper house of parliament after a crucial election. Gains by right-wing populist party Sansito are piling more pressure on Ishiba's shaky minority government in the lower house. A weak economy and growing immigration are fueling a rise in populist politics. This is DW News from Berlin.
Good afternoon, it's 4 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 New Delhi and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Ilakya Silveraji at this hour. An electoral setback for Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba after his ruling coalition fails to secure a majority in the upper house of parliament. Is bound to stay in office despite the poor results. Heavy rain in South Korea kills at least 18 people after continuous downpours triggered landslides and floods. A powerful storm also wreaked havoc in parts of China and Hong Kong.
Africa News. The news.
Failed revolutions, military coups, and unfair elections. In many African nations, observers are denouncing an alarming democratic backslide. But why is this the case? And what risks is democracy facing? These are the questions Senegalese journalist Ousmane Diaye asks in his book released last week in French, Africa Against Democracy, Myths, Denial and Dangers.
We are currently observing a quite unprecedented democratic regression because disputing democracy is openly accepted today. In the Sahel, in Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, the Alliance of Sahel States, we are seeing an explicit and official rhetoric of rejecting democracy in all these three countries.
Since 2020, the continent has seen 9 successful military coups, with most of them taking place in West Africa. But not only such military regimes reject democracy, according to Ndiaye. Elected leaders like Kais Saied, the president of Tunisia, have also taken to repressing freedoms and using democratic appearances to disguise their autocratic regimes.
On paper, the institutions are democratic. There is a parliament, a national assembly, an independent electoral commission, but de facto, nothing is democratic.
But Ndiaye also sees a reason to be hopeful.
I think the element of hope will be the population's capability of taking charge. For me, hope is the awakening of the citizens. By citizens, I don't only mean have an ID, an electoral card, but citizenship in terms of being aware of one's rights and duties and seizing the possibility of exercising them.
Autocratic regimes and brutal military juntas have made popular uprisings difficult in many countries. But in some, like Togo, the grip on power of long-term rulers has recently seen vivid protest from citizens. At the forefront, the young generation, determined to fight for its future.
The Eastern Libyan authorities have sent hundreds of Sudanese back to their war-torn home country, according to officials on Saturday, in a crackdown on migrants seeking to flee conflict and poverty for Europe. The way of the Mediterranean nation, 700 Sudanese who were detained recently in central and southeastern Libya were deported Friday by land to Sudan. The Directorate for Combating Eastern Libya said in a statement. The statement further found that some of the deportees suffered from infectious diseases, including hepatitis A. Others were deported because of either criminal convictions or security reasons. The deportation was part of an ongoing crime and migrant trafficking in East Libya. drive of powerful military commanders Khalifa Haftar. Last week, the Coast Guard in eastern Libya said it intercepted a boat carrying 80 Europe-bound migrants off the eastern city of Tobruk. The campaign includes raids on trafficking hubs across eastern and southern Libya.
At least 9 people have reportedly been killed in an armed attack in northwestern Nigeria over the weekend. Many more were abducted in the attack, which took place in Zamfara state on Friday. Violence against locals has recently increased in the area, seemingly stemming from bandit gangs, according to residents. Such armed gangs are responsible for kidnapping thousands and killing several hundreds of people over the past few years. Gunmen frequently storm villages and farms or attack schools and colleges, abducting students. In 2021, over 300 girls were abducted by assailants from a school in Zamfara state, before later being released for a ransom payment from authorities. Nigeria's military and security forces regularly launch counterattacks, but have so far struggled to tame the violence region. No more sectarian violence. Syria's interim president Ahmed al-Shara called for all parties in violent clashes in southern Syria to respect the ceasefire today. Tensions between Bedouins and the religious minority group of the Druze in Sweda province escalated last week, killing at least 900 people since the 13th of July. It is also necessary to firmly confront anyone who seeks to stir up sectarian strife, fuel the flames of division, or promote the discourse of revenge and retaliation. The Syrian state, in line with the according to early on Sunday, there's a region having with the armed forces also involved in the fighting.
Tonight, weather danger for millions. Heat, wind, and flood alerts from the Midwest to the Northeast. Torrential rain in Maryland and Virginia, leading to emergency rescues.
I saw the street, and then 5 minutes later, I couldn't see the street at all.
Iowa hammered by thunderstorms, Nebraska by hail.
I'm meteorologist Andrew Kozak. I'm tracking new weather threats that could impact millions. Details in your forecast.
Also tonight, President Trump marks 6 months back in office.
The president is touting his achievements while trying to contain the Epstein saga. I'm really James Emmett at the White House with details on news. CBS News Americans give it all.
Plus, battleground California.
I'm Elise Preston in Los Angeles. Troops on the streets, ice raids across the state. How California is facing off against the president's agenda.
Immigration mission is one of the forefront of this administration.
Suspect charged. The latest on carnage in Hollywood after a driver slaps his car into a crowd. And later, they are the lawnmower gang, using horsepower to help clean up Detroit's abandoned parks and playgrounds.
It became a gang when I found a project that was too big for one person.
This is the CBS from New York with Jerika Duncan. Good evening, everyone. Is off. I'm Errol Barnett. We begin this Sunday with dangerous weather. New heat and flood affecting all the west to the northeast. Out west, a wildfire burning in Oregon could reach rare mega fire status. We're looking at the Crown Fire, which is already its largest and could be the first year to grow at least 100,000 acres. CBS's Chanel Cole is here in New York City, leading us off. Chanel, tell us more.
Well, Errol, here in New York, we are seeing hot temperatures, intense humidity, and a risk of torrential rain tonight. It's a similar situation playing out in several parts of the country. Summer storms brought wind chill, cracking hail to Nebraska and flash flooding to the nation's capital. More than 5 inches of rain fell in that region Saturday, making many roads impassable.
I never seen this bad. I've lived here for 20 years.
Dozens had to be rescued from their cars. In Texas, officials dramatically missing from the catastrophic flooding in Crook County from about 100 to 3. They say many who were initially reported as missing have been verified as safe. The 4th of July flash flood killed at least 135 people. This week, Texas state lawmakers will hold a special session partially aimed at improving severe weather.
Tonight, the stunning overhead announcement from an airline pilot after a close call in the sky. The pilot of a Delta flight explaining a near miss with what he described as a B-52 bomber directly in their path. After a close quick emergency maneuver,
person on board telling our team the plane ended up sideways. The big question tonight, how could this happen? Another dangerous weather weekend, grapefruit-sized hail in Nebraska. And here in the D.C. area, floods and rescues. Look at that. Near record temperature Orlando and Tampa, and where the heat is heading next. President Trump marking 6 months in office today, but it's a moment overshadowed by the firestorm around the Jeffrey Epstein case and the backlash from his base. An off-duty Border Patrol agent shot in New York during an attempted robbery. The Department of Homeland Security saying the suspect entered the country illegally. Violence erupting in Syria just months after its new government took power. Intense gunfire forcing our team to take cover, and new concerns for what's next in the region. You've heard of self-driving cars, but now self-driving shuttles could be the future of public transportation. And there's good news tonight about a community stepping up to write the next chapter of this couple's love story.
This is NBC Nightly News with Ellie Jensen.
Good evening. We start tonight with what sounds like a stunning scene thousands of feet above North Dakota, with a Delta flight narrowly avoiding a collision with a military plane, according to the pilot, telling passengers he had to bring the plane around fast to avoid what he described as a B-52 coming their direction. Listen.
Sorry about the aggressive maneuver. It caught me by surprise. Not normal at all.
One person on board the regional flight describing going completely sideways when it happened. You can tell the read this flight and then that loop before it landed safely in Minot, about 50 minutes.
Thank you for watching Amish Shakil 5858. I am Amish Shakil. I hope you will visit again. Have a good life. Bye-bye.